America at its founding, at the time of its actual founding, going back 250 years, America was not a white land. It's a simple fact. There may have been people at that time that, just like now, aspired to make America a land for whites who did things to make that happen. But the reality of who was actually living here, it was not uniform. It was not uniform. It was not white in the sense that they want to remember it, right? Only about 45 to 50% of the population around the founding of America were British. There were other groups here. There was small Jewish populations here. There were other European groups other than British. You had the Scots-Irish, which is not the same type of Irish that we think of in the second wave of immigration, the Irish Catholics. These were people who were from Scotland and Northern Ireland, and they were referred to as Scots-Irish, but they were still at that time, it may seem wholly similar now, and some of these people, in hindsight, may want to lump everybody together to preserve some, what they call Anglo-America, but that definition has shifted over the years, and now they might call it European or Judeo-Christian or whatever they want to call it. The fact is that at the time of the founding, those groups were not seen as a monolith. They were not seen as sharing values in some huge way. They were very distinct, and they had a lot of conflict. And even different groups from different parts of England settled in different colonies and had conflicts. And that's important to remember. Obviously, there were a multitude of Native Americans. And if you go back and look at a lot of, don't even go back, go look at the map right now. Go pull out a map of America right now and look at a lot of the words, rivers, the Potomac, the Susquehanna, all these different names that are on the map. The Miami of Ohio, where'd that come from, huh? You should look it up. A lot of the land, and we know this, but do we really contemplate and think about it? The Native Americans were not an afterthought at the founding of this country. They were not already relegated, totally to another land. Now, jurisdictionally, politically, they may have been relegated through land purchases and wars and different things to other parts of the country. But in terms of commerce, trade, day-to-day life, whether they were legally included or not, and we'll get to that, Native Americans were a huge part of this country in day-to-day life. They were a huge presence here. In addition to these diversified European groups. You still had some Dutch here. Remember, Dutch are the first who settled New York. That's why there's so many, Dutch names, Hill van Kull, and all these things in New York, and all this New York history. They were here. And so I say this to say there might have been aspirationalists at that time who might have envisioned this as some specific land for a specific group of people. But the reality, just like today, on the ground, just like today, was diverse. In fact, and you also remember, you had the French and Spanish that were here, and they owned a lot of different lands here, and they were interactive. But you also had, in the South, this is something that I don't know if everybody really understands. Black people were the majority population of South Carolina from about 1710 until the American Revolution. African Americans were the majority of South Carolina. This country, this continent, the history does not bear out that it was majority white or always white, ever. Maybe in legal inclusion under the law, which from a moral, abstract, philosophical standpoint, we can certainly debate, and clearly I would say it was wrong, and most people in my paradigm would, but sadly we're here where we have to have these debates. It was never actually, physically, legitimately, objectively, majority white everywhere in this country, on this continent. It just wasn't. And from 1710 to the Revolution, the majority of people living in South Carolina were black. Okay? Whites remained the majority of the Virginia population, but several of the Virginia counties were majority black at the time of the American Revolution. At the time of the American Revolution. So can they say that the primary architects of our documents or the architects of some of the legal things we have were majority white? Of course they can. But was that representative of what the country actually was? Was that representative of the culture that founded the country? Was it representative of the melting pot that was here and the economic engine and the agricultural engine and all these other things? Was that representative of what was actually here? No, it clearly and definitively and objectively was not.